I've loved the TRS year over year for many years. It was one of the first Mervin boards I ever owned. Just kind of turned me on to what they were doing. I had the old camber board, tried the BTX, tried the C2, and now the XC2. And you know, as you can see from this picture, from this video, I think they call it a true twin, and it feels more directional twin to even twinish for me. But it's still super doable, regular and switch. And you know, it's got this, like, you can kind of see off the base here, it's got this like really aggressive magnet traction that really grips well between the feet, but they've really mellowed it out in the tip and tail compared to the old magnet traction boards years ago. And it really grabs well between the feet, but doesn't like grab too much in the soft snow compared to how it used to. Some still might, that might be a turn off, and they make mellower mag boards if it is. But this is like, why I always recommend this for is somebody who just knows they're pretty much gonna ride centered all the time. They like taking it regular and switch either way. Just as much, you know, they like going switch just as much as they like going regular. And you know, they're gonna see a lot of hard snow. This is a hard snow specialist, and it's a little stiffer, a little meaner for you know, those centered mountain freestyle rides. So it kind of has a lot of you know, all mountain appeal. The only problem is you can't set it back, and it doesn't have much directional float. It's just not a floater for this kind of hybrid rocker style of board. You definitely want, if you want something you can set back and get really good float on powder, you can get the Terrain Wrecker. It's not as stiff, it's more buttery, it's a little more playful, it's not as damp, but it kind of excels everywhere else, and it's still got just as much edge hold. You know, and if you want kind of like a little less edge hold, kind of like a similar feel, but you want to be able to set it back in powder, then you have the Lando Phoenix, and that's a much better call. But if you just know, you know, maybe you're too bored quivering it and you just want like a nice, forgiving groomer specialist, then you have the TRS. And you can kind of see, you know, it's got that kind of like, you know, spin the bottle thing. And there's a little more nose than tail, you can see. But once you're weighted down, you know, it's really good. And this is way more turny than, let's say you're looking at the T-Rice. This is way more fun to make kind of tighter, quicker turns. The T-Rice seems to have less side cut depth, or just, you know, maybe so, maybe not, but it just seems to be more straight liney. And it seems to not like quick turns as much as this, you know, this TRS 157. Love the graphic this year, it's so cool. You know, a nice little departure from the skulls and, you know, craziness year over year. So it's nice to see that. But let's get to why you don't want this if you like to set it back in powder. You're looking at just about 22 3/4 all the way back, which works pretty well for me. But you're looking at 20 1/2 and 18. So you're only looking at about 2 1/2 back on board, which isn't that much. When you're looking at the Terrain Wrecker, it's like 3 1/2, and you've got so much more like nose, so much less tail, that it just likes powder a little better. So, you know, that's the TRS. And one other thing I'd like to address, I always hear this from people. People kind of freak out because this is kind of like an extruded base. And people think like, God, but you know, I don't know. They just like have issues with that for some reason. If this is extruded, I love extruded because it keeps its speed really well. And one of the advantages of, like, I don't know if you'd call this like a high-end extruded or kind of like an extruded centered hybrid, whatever you want to call it. I've never experienced this base being slow, and I've compared this on the same day, same conditions, taking a run, then taking out a nice, perfectly waxed, centered base, and compared the two. And this base has glide. You know, and here's the thing with bases like this, they really shine if you're not a diligent waxer. If you really like to wax and you wax every day, you can kind of like guess what the conditions are going to be, and you're really good with weather, and you're really good with figuring out exactly what the snow is going to do, and you can wax accordingly, then yeah, you're going to find better bases out there for sure. If you're more like me and you're just like, fuck, I hate waxing, I just want to throw on some all-temp wax and just kind of get the best I can get without having to get weird, because I'm a quiver rider and it's hard to maintain a lot of boards. So it's nice to have that and know, like, hey, if the wax, if it's not perfectly waxed, it's still going to have really good glide. You're never going to have those lows, but you're also never going to have those highs, but it's always going to kind of be in the middle, kind of like me. So I like that. I like that that consistency, and the fact that I've ridden this board and I've passed a lot of guys with nice centered bases that they didn't wax for the right conditions, or that they just didn't wax it. Nice centered bases get really slow if you don't take care of them, and they can become really shitty. So that's just a little thing about their base, and a lot of people worry about it. I say don't worry, don't ask me any questions about it. I just told you everything I'd say to you in writing. So there you have it, the Lib Tech TRS. Such a fun board. Not the best butterer, but so good for just getting out on hard snow and having a good time, and taking a mountain freestyle approach to hard snow.